Project Manager David Dinkoon, here to present item 1, the contract modification agreement number 1 with Parametrics Inc. for the Francis Street Outfall Improvements Project. Jane, was this discussed in Public Works? Okay, any lingering questions or any information? Okay, great. Mr. Dinkoon, you're up.
Thank you. Good afternoon, councilors. I'll be as brief as I can. We have a vicinity map for the project on screen. The reason for the consultant modification in summary is that we contracted them to do design kind of on a parallel track with the the grant application. And the grant was awarded, and that process has basically bumped the schedule by a year. So part of the modification for the consultant is that extra time for project management. At the same time, we found a project feature that allowed us to use, and that feature is an previously unknown 18-inch outfall to the lake that we incorporated into the project and asked them to do a basic redesign. So there's 2 outfalls there instead of 1. The redesign will eliminate the new outfall that we had planned for and had brought forward to 90% design. So it's a redesign. It impacts almost every sheet in the set. And that's probably the bulk of the cost. And to give you a point of reference, construction savings, we're estimating at about $235,000. So that offsets the $85,000 modification. And then secondarily, we included final design budget in the grant, which will cover most of the 85. It's 80,000 grant dollars.
Thank you very much. Councilors, any questions? Anna and then Eric. You'll need to use the microphone.
Microphone.
Thank you, VP.
I'm already on vacation. It simplifies permitting for the project. That's great. You went with Parametrics because they had done the original work on this wetland?
Right. They were selected under a competitive process.
Okay.
For both pieces of work, the original conceptual design and final design.
Okay. And you had them do this contract modification because continuity.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. My burning question is, what happens to that $235,000?
Well, we hopefully have that available if we need it for project overruns. And I would hesitate if somebody asks to move it into another project until we actually get bid results.
That would jinx it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then my final question is, how deep was this new 18-inch outfall?
Very close to the surface. Maybe 2 feet of cover, but it was buried. The outlet end was buried, so I don't think it was even functional.
Okay, but because it's an outfall,
we can use it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Eric?
So Dave, I'm not on Public Works, so please pardon me if it gets too technical on the questions. The 18-inch outfall I saw in another picture is a concrete pipe.
Yes, concrete.
And any idea, because if you had replaced it with a new outfall, it would have been some type of plastic pipe, correct?
Yes.
So what is the expected lifespan of the existing 18? I assume you ran a scope all the way up and said this thing's good and it should last X amount of years.
So to be honest, I remember it was evaluated at the time. I don't know if we put a TV camera through it. I can't remember.
And the outfall that you were gonna put in, what size was that gonna be?
Probably would have been a 30-inch pipe.
Okay.
So it would have combined the existing 24 and the existing 18, the flow that was going to both in a new pipe.
Oh, okay, so we're still gonna have redundancy. We're gonna have parallel systems. We're gonna have the 24 that we have now and the 18 is what you're telling me. We're not, okay. That's a little more comforting then. Okay. All right. Okay, thank you. Oh, last question. Sound like Columbo here. Not meant to be a gotcha moment.
This is where he gets you really.
No,
hard.
no. Don't we have all this stuff mapped out?
Yes, and it wasn't, so there was a line in our GIS system that I didn't understand. And in addition, our project survey didn't pick up the way the configuration, the way it was laid out. So it was just confusing. So I wouldn't say the GIS system is perfect by any means. So, but that's what initiated we went out there to explore and figure out what was going on.
Okay.
So a couple pieces of, well, one piece of information that wasn't, that led us to believe that it wasn't there, and another that was. I'm not being very clear here, but
No.
anyway, it was a puzzle that we had.
I
to
get it.
puzzle.
There's, I won't say oversight, but sometimes stuff happens and it's buried and wasn't visually available and, stuff happens. I get it. So you're making the best of it. And actually, it sounds like, the city's not losing any money. It's being covered by the grant for the redesign is what you said.
Yes.
So, okay, I'm good with it. So thank you.
Counselors, how do you want to treat the item? Consent. Thank you very much, Mr. Dinkoon. All right. Okay, next up, we have Internal Services Manager Matt Donleycott here to present item 2, Public Works Agreement with Axiom Division 7 for the Puget Sound Naval Museum Roof and Gutter Project. Was this discussed in Public Works? Any lingering questions or information that you wanted to make sure they brought with to this presentation? Okay, a thorough discussion. Ooh, and then, not to put you on the spot, but you're up. You're up, Mr. Donleycott.
I'll explain what it is later, but it's for
Ooh.
good evening, council members. I'm here to present the roof and gutter project for city-owned Building 50, where the Navy Museum is located at. We originally identified this project in 2020, and we've pushed this roof as far as we are comfortable doing. The roof is at the end of its serviceable life. The environment and the seagulls have caused the roof to fail in many places. There are 2 types of roofing: composition shingles and PVC membrane, in total about 6,600 square feet. There are areas where the roofing underlayment has become visible due to seagulls pecking at it. We've been battling the seagulls for years, and recently we've seen a decrease in activity. This is largely due to our current deterrent methods. City staff checks the roof regularly to avoid further damage. The gutters are a little better off, but one of the most recent leaks was caused by the gutters fail. Building 50 has wooden trough style gutters that have a tin liner. This liner has become very brittle and starting to deteriorate in places and allow water into the building. One of the most recent leaks, it leaked from one of the gutters. The water got in and went all the way down to the basement where the artifacts were stored. No artifacts were damaged, but we don't want that to happen again. So. Our original plan was to have aluminum liners made for all the gutters, which is about 420 feet. After talking with several contractors, we realized this was not a good approach. Life expectancy was only 5 years on those liners, unless we went with copper, which we didn't have the budget to even consider something like that. So we were put onto this system. This is called a Kemper system. It goes down. It'll be applied right onto the tin liners. It seals the liners, and we're also going to apply it 2 feet up the roof pitch. So it's complete watertight seal. So we shouldn't have these leaks like we're experiencing. The life expectancy of this Kemper system is 20 years. So for this project, we contacted 6 contractors and received 3 proposals. Axiom Division 7 was the lowest at $132,104. We included a $20,000 force account, just if we run into any rot or sheathing that needs to be addressed. So in total, this project is not to exceed $164,257.57. This was originally budgeted at $190,000 and is in the 2024 approved facility CIP budget. So we are under budget and we need no additional funds. And our plan is to have this work completed in September of this year. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. Counselors? Anna? Oh, wait, you know what? Let me defer to Eric here because you're on the public works. No, you're not. I apologize. Okay. Eric and then Anna.
Okay, so that explains why you're grinding existing gutters because they're wooden. And so you're applying that and it's in a sheet form, but it's actually going to be sprayed on like a two-part epoxy with a gun.
I
Something
think
like that.
yes, it's a two-part.
It would have to be, otherwise it would clog up the.
Correct.
All right.
Yes.
So the roofing, is that different? I saw that it's going to be comp when you have a pitch greater than 3 and 12 or whatever the rules are. Is do you have a flat portion of the roof on the Navy? And that's why, are you using that material? Or-
No, we are not. So it is composition. This will go up 2 feet up the pitch, just kind of seal in that gutter trough.
Okay,
It'll be composition. At the very top of the museum, there's a flat roof. That's a PVC membrane roof
okay.
that the seagulls have destroyed.
And you're replacing that
We're-
with PVC.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And what is, unless it's a trade secret, what is the city's method to keep the birds off? You mentioned.
I can tell you all that we do. So we installed sprinklers. That has been a huge help.
Okay.
We use what we call octopus. It's those metal tines that spin around. Like they have little balls on the end of the things that spin around. We use those. Grape extract, like cleaner. They don't like grape smell.
Okay.
Seagulls do not like it. So we actually will spray the roof with that. We'll clean with that. And then also we have these little discs. They have like it's a garlic grape mixture. It's disgusting. And they just stick down like with caulking with liquid nails. Those are placed all over the place up there.
Another suggest if you could make it so it's attractive eagle habitat, because over by me, we got eagles and all the birds go like this. And they just start, they come back and they go after them. But anyway. Okay, it sounds good. As 6,500 square feet. Sounds fairly reasonable for all the work that's being done. So, the wooden gutters, you're keeping them because of historical significance to the building?
Correct. Yes.
All right, because otherwise I would go with commercial metal and be done with it.
We looked at that and that was, but yeah. And Counselor Coughlin sent a PDF thing and it talks all about it. It's in perpetuity. No modifications, remodeling, or other work shall be undertaken or permitted.
No worries. It probably looks nicer that way. I understand. So, okay, thank you.
Anna? Yeah, can we pause for just a moment? I just want to check with IT. Are y'all getting some, there's some static, but is it affecting the recording? It's just in here. Can I get you to do a little test? 1, 2, 3, Mr. Donnelly?
Test 1, 2, 3.
Okay, we're just gonna move forward. Anna, go right ahead.
What a very inexpensive purchase this was. Is there any way historically to put a metal roof on it?
Possibly. I don't know. Yes, I mean, it would be changing the structure of the roof though a little bit. I mean, what's on there, as I've known that I did research. So we would have to probably look into that to see if it's a viable option.
Because a metal roof's lifespan would be much longer.
It would be much longer. They're tougher to maintain for us. I can tell you that, cleaning purposes and things like that. But the reason why we didn't go with the aluminum gutters there is because of impairment. The sill droppings they're like acidic and it eats through the metal. Where things are, they tend to fail. The caulking fails. Very harsh environment up on that roof right next to the water. So
Okay, well, other than recommending that you pass on your garlic grape solution to the shipyard, which is also very much plagued by gulls, thank you very much for your presentation.
Jeff?
Oh, thank you. No, it's a city-owned building and needs a new roof. That's clear. My only question is just looking at the total amount of 164,000 is, did staff look into applying for any grants for this? I know like last year during budget season, I mentioned there's the Heritage Capital Project grant that's eligible for local governments that started at I think back in February or March.
I did look into grants. The only ones I found were directly related to, they weren't for the roof of the building. It was only for like museum exhibits or things of that nature. I didn't find anything that was for the maintenance of the building itself.
Okay, yeah, like the Heritage Capital project is specifically for roofs and maintaining the building and all that. So it only provides a third of the total cost. So it would have been, maybe 60 grand, but that still would have been 60 grand less of out of a REIT fund if we're able to get it. I just wanted to check on that, and maybe in the future for big projects like this, we can just double check. We're looking at every grant opportunity first, but otherwise the bid looks good and we need to get it done. So we'll move forward. Thank you.
All right. Oh, okay. Denise, go right ahead.
I just want to make sure that we make the point that in Public Works, we also talked about the contract that we have with the Navy, that it comes due for renewal or editing, whatever. I believe in September.
That's
Is that
correct.
correct? September of this year.
Can you turn your mic on? Oh, sorry. Thank you, Jane.
The Navy reached out and asked for a 1-year renewal, and then it will go through an actual process.
Wonderful. Okay.
Next year, a new, hopefully more favorable to the city contract will be written.
Thank you.
Okay, counselors, how should we treat the item? Consent. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Donnelly.
you.
Okay. Yeah, you got it. We're going to pause for an IT upgrade of some sort. I am now accepting dad jokes. If anybody's on deck, please turn your mic on. And no? Oh man. And that's the hardest. Okay. Jane's got a dad joke for us.
My grandson asked the internet if the Russians caused the big outage last Friday, and the response he got was "Niet."
Testing, testing.
Come on, Eric.
Okay, I got it back clean up here.
You got to.
See if I can remember this one right. A horse and a pig are sitting in a bar. The pig turns to the horse and says, "Hey buddy, why the long face?" Come on, that was good.
It's a class.
I've seen some laughs. I've seen some rolling in the eyes. Those are dad jokes. They're supposed to be like,
We did not hear enough audible groans from the public, so. Yeah. Jeff. Right. I mean, it's hard to do dad jokes on command. The thing about dad jokes is they're in context with the conversation, right? Like,
This has no context, but Eric, what do you call a cow with no legs? Ground beef.
ground beef. Oh my gosh. How's our microphone now? We're ready to go? Okay. Luckily, Mike Riley and budget analyst Lauren Ellington are here to save us from the dad jokes with the next item on the agenda, which is ordinance to amend an ordinance number 5487 relating to the city of Bremerton FY fiscal year 2024 budget. Our finance chair is gone, so was this discussed in finance? I don't know that it needs to be. It's a mid-year.
Lightly, we mentioned it was coming. We didn't get in depth. We typically do not. We
Okay.
do take it to full council.
Okay. All right. Feel free to
All right. ready for
continue,
me?
sir.
So Lori Ellington, our budget analyst, is not here tonight. She's under the weather. Got back from her trip and caught a bug coming back from Ireland. So I don't feel too bad for her. She got to go to Ireland, but she's not here with us. So you have to bear with me. I wish I had something more exciting as most mid-year adjustments. I think Eric says it well. A lot of housekeeping, a lot of carryover. There's nothing really exciting to the packet. I'll kind of scroll through a couple of pages. This gives the details. Starting with the general fund, we do have the police chief here tonight to talk about one of the adjustments he's requesting, and also the fire chief. Really, no new adds, just some reclass of positions. So if you all start off, if you wouldn't mind, with the police chief to kind of walk through his proposal. Proposal is to remove one patrol officer from BPD and then add one lieutenant position to BPT. So a net zero, but a different rank.
Good evening, council. Proposal for us is, as you know, that in the last couple of years, we went to body cameras. And one of the consequences of that is we have to review everything that we do. Currently, we have our sergeants, our first line supervisors, reviewing all uses of force and pursuits. They're spending a lot of time in the office doing that. So I looked around, talked to other agencies, kind of what they do. KCSO had a great example of their Office of Professional Standards, where that's at a lieutenant's level. The beauty is you don't have 6 different opinions on if this is good or bad. It's going into one office. That person can handle all of our complaints. What I'd like to do is currently we have 2 lieutenants in the operations side of the house. We have 1 lieutenant in the support services side. So I'd like to promote a lieutenant into the support service side, create the Office of Professional Standard there, where that person would review all of our use of force. They would review all of our pursuits. They would be the clearinghouse for all of our complaints, all of our IAs. All of that would start in one place, and then they would work with the support service captain to do that. As you know, we take all our complaints. We take everything that comes in, no matter how we get it. So what that would do is the first line supervisors, as you know, we have a very young police department right now. It would free them up from all that video that they have to look at and put them back out on the street. So it's actually a force multiplier. And we are bringing back our officer that was at the police academy. So it will be a net zero loss for bodies. Did that make sense? All right. Okay.
One thing to highlight, there is not a budget adjustment in 2024 for this due to the savings in police. So we just noted in the highlights section, if you look up here in the out years overall, you'll see about a $58,000 change in the increase in personnel in 25 and 26, but no budget adjustment needed for 2024.
Okay, so you have savings through the department that's being carried over to the increase for the FTE.
We'll be able to cover it in this year's budget.
Okay, and then, is there anything else that you want to discuss with your proposed changes, or is that the presentation?
That's it.
Okay, we're gonna do just a short round of questions for this. Jane, I saw your hand up first, and then Denise. Oh, wait a minute. You know what? Denise is public safety chair. Let me go ahead and defer to her, and then we'll go to you, Jane. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, President Chamberlain. Thank you, Chief. I just wanted to make sure that people were aware that this was discussed. And to me, it was, would you say it's a reorganization of resources to have greater impact?
Yeah,
That's why.
The 2 biggest impacts that we have is it helps us with better transparency. It helps us with better continuity of flow of, the major things. The use of force is major, pursuit is major, complaints, those are major things. We have one place that sits, so we keep it instead of spreading it out, and some of it gets filtered and some of it isn't handled well, and then we have to go back and fix it. I think it cleans that up. And then the other is the force multiplier of getting our supervisors out on the street. They need to be out there. So I think from our point of view, we think it's the right thing to do. It's a good use of our resources that way.
Thank you.
Jane?
So it's my understanding that now you've hired up for all your available positions. Is that correct?
We have 2 more to fill, is my understanding.
So, but you got some new people back from the academy.
We have quite a few new people in
I saw.
training, and we're slowly getting them. They're in different stages. been spread out over the last several months. We have some coming out of FTO and onto the street. So we're gaining back competencies continuously.
Okay. So there's only two, in theory, only 2 more that need to go through the academy till you're fully staffed up.
Correct.
Okay. So we're still, but yeah, I see you swore in 3 new people this week.
Yes, we have.
So we're only gonna be, we'll actually gain 2 by doing this adjustment on the street.
Yes, and we'll also bring back the officer that was at the police academy in first part of August.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Jeff.
Just to make sure I understand it, so currently each officer is reviewing their own use of force, or did I not understand that right?
So each sergeant who's in charge of their squad reviews every use of force video, which could be hours and hours of video. And then it's not just the one officer, it's each officer involved.
Oh, okay.
So there's quite a bit of time reviewing video, and then that gets sent to a lieutenant who reviews it anyway. In this case, what we do is we take it up a level and take that responsibility off of the first line supervisors.
Oh, okay, sorry, that makes sense. I just wanted to double check on that, so.
And
appreciate
it gets confusing because a lot of people are like lieutenant, sergeant. So it's officer, and then we have corporals and sergeants that are out on the streets. And then we have a lieutenant who's an administrator.
Gotcha. And if there was a sergeant that currently, if there's a sergeant that was involved in a use of force incident, they wouldn't be reviewing their own. That would go
No,
straight up.
it'd
Just
go
be-
to the
yeah.
lieutenant.
No, just had to double check there, but that makes sense.
You'll need your mic on, Jane, sorry, we gotta,
All I said was I need a military cheat card because I could never keep them straight.
Anna, do you have a question? Or are you just moving your mic? Anna, right ahead.
So, thank you, Chief. That made it very clear. I was wondering, is this the normal thing across the country that police forces review their own body cam video? There's no like outside consultant or something?
Not that I'm aware of. Most of it all starts with us. We review all of any major use of force, we review it at several levels.
So, how do you attain objectivity? I mean, these are people you work with. Everybody I work with, I kind of like have a inclination towards them.
I guess the best way to say that is that the people that dislike bad cops the most are good cops. So you have a department full of good cops and they don't tolerate bad cops.
That wasn't where I was going at all.
I'm not sure how to answer it other than that is we're the subject matter experts on use of force and training and policies. And I'm not sure who could come from the outside and do that.
No,
And do it affordably.
yeah. So
So
you have like one squad reviewing another squad's video, or it's all inside.
Well-
Is squad the right word? I don't even know.
no, squad is the group that's working at each time and they're overseen by a supervisor. We have that supervisor reviewing his squad's uses of force. And from there, it's not just reviewed by that. It goes up from there. They make recommendations and stuff, but then it has to be reviewed again at 2 other levels.
At 2 other what? I'm sorry.
2 other levels.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And just to clarify, you do a protocol in place for body cam footage review. I think that's where,
Yes.
maybe just at some point in time, you can share that with our public safety committee and then they can share out to us if that would be, doable in the future. Eric, go right ahead. I don't have any other questions.
So this got me thinking, Chief. So I know you have a police policy manual and that covers use of force. So there's standards. It's not just one individual, but he or she is going to interpret the police policy manual, make sure the policies are followed, right?
Correct.
So I like this idea, not being an expert in this field, but having one person that that's their job to do, is to review it for the department. Kind of an internal affairs type job.
Yes.
So, but I was wondering, so if an elected official gets a DUI or traffic thing, it gets turned over to the Washington State Patrol. At what time is there anything in the police policy manual or any guidelines when you turn over the use of force to an outside agency like Washington State Patrol or the city of Poulsbo or any, some neighboring jurisdiction?
Yeah, if it's anything that falls short of an officer involved shooting, if it is major injury, major issue, we will go to other agencies like Kitsap County and say, for transparency purposes, say, we want you to review this. Or we've had them where in-house, we have different opinions on where this use of force is. We had I can remember a tasering that we had that we were all pretty certain, this is not good. We went to an outside expert who came in and then walked us through it, because that's all this guy does is
Right.
this sort of stuff. And it wasn't good. So then the next steps, we went from there. So
Also, you mentioned an officer involved shooting. Are those automatically reviewed by an outside agency?
by the state law.
Okay, see, I
all
think
officers
that's where
have
this
to-
council was missing it. Use of
Yes.
force is basically you restrain somebody. Did they go over bounds
Right.
or were they in limits?
Yeah, and
I got
a use of force is anything above just kind of guiding someone along. If you look at, we have between 100 to 120 uses of force a year, which is really a low for all the 55,000 calls. That's very low level. Major uses of force, like we pepper sprayed someone, or we had to punch them, or we tasered them. Those are like 5 or 6. I mean, most of them are, we're having to compel someone with some sort of a wrist lock because they're not cooperating. Most of all of it is very low level uses of force, but we categorize and we track every single use.
Right.
So, and I'll give public safety a whole use of
Yeah.
force
That'd be
lesson
great.
in the near future.
All right, counselors, are we okay with this revision request? With this modification so it'll be, in the future, it's a $58,000 impact. I have one other question. All police officers, including lieutenants, bargaining agreements, are they under the same bargaining agreement?
That's the upside of this also, is the lieutenants are in a different bargaining.
So are they like exempt, or are they different bargaining team? They're not
Different bargaining team.
Gotcha.
So as far as holding someone in a
They
different.
do
bargaining
have
unit,
they do have a contract, a union.
correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's the last question. All right. We're going to move forward then on the rest of Mr. Riley's presentation,
All right.
unless you have anything else, any other pearls of wisdom for us today, Chief Wolf.
Well, they wanted me to tell a knock knock joke, but we'll save that.
Oh, we were going with dad jokes earlier, but why don't you email your knock knock joke to city.council@ci.bremerton.wa.
Who's there? Police, open up.
All right.
Okay, jumping back in, I will say 99% of what you see here is carryover from previous year's projects, budget that was already approved, that did not get spent, that's carrying over into this year's budget. So the reason to highlight the things that hasn't been come before council or a previously been approved, we'll pull Chief McGanny up here, who has a reclass as well, that again, it's a zero sum, no FTE. It's moving a one FTE firefighter to a one FTE paramedic firefighter. Net is 13,400 in the out years. Again, this year there's budget savings, no budgetary impact for 2024. So Chief's here to kind of talk about that a little bit, but
All right.
Go ahead,
Chief McGanny, you're up.
So we had a retirement of a 26-year employee not long ago who was a firefighter. Would like to upgrade that position to a firefighter paramedic. For years, we've been authorized 15 paramedics. When council gave us the 3 additional FTEs a couple years ago, there was 1 paramedic in that. Trying to get our shift paramedic staffing up to 7 per shift. That's my long range goal. Just because of the number of calls that we're running, our out of service times with an additional unit hopefully coming on board, that will help that. So this is just one step in doing that. The difference between a 26-year employee and an entry level paramedic is significant, but the delta when everything is equal is about $13,000. There will be a significant cost savings for a couple years that we will see just from hiring a new employee versus a 26-year employee. So, and with the amount of time it's taking to one, find paramedics and to get them up and trained, this will help with that in years to come.
Thank you. I'm just trying to find the page that this item was on. I luckily found the other one, but does anybody have the page number? The fund 11. I just want to. The very last page of the document. Okay. And was this 76.99? Thank you. And Denise, was this brought to your attention at Public Safety?
Yes.
Okay,
It was
Yes,
quite a
it
while
was
ago.
discussed.
quite a
It's-
while ago.
Yeah, but again, it's restructuring a little bit for greater impact, which I really appreciate from both of our chiefs.
Thank you.
Okay, counselors, any questions? Yeah, Jane, go right ahead.
How many shifts are there?
3. Well, 4 with day shift. But we have 3 24-hour shifts.
Okay. And so currently, how many paramedics do you have?
We have 2, well, when we get fully staffed, we're not fully staffed yet.
Okay,
We will have 1 shift that will have 6 paramedics on it. The other 2 will have 5. With this position would put a 6th paramedic on 2 out of 3 shifts.
okay. But with the increase in calls, you feel you're eventually gonna need 7 per shift?
Yes, for relief with the amount of calls that we're seeing, the type of calls that we're seeing, we're starting to see more and more burnout. And so if we can get that relief to where our paramedics have help with another paramedic on duty with them, I think it will show us some relief with some of our burnout that we're
Okay,
gonna see.
thank you.
Same question I'll ask you is about the, I mean, I think they're in the same bargaining unit, right?
All our employees in the fire department are in the same bargaining.
That's right,
except
they are.
Myself and the assistant chief and my administrative assistant.
Okay, fair. And can you remind me again the fiscal impact for 25?
There will actually be a decrease from the
Okay.
salary that we were paying for the firefighter that retired to a new firefighter. But once they get to where it's equal, it'll be a $13,000 increase, but that won't be for 2025.
Okay, and I mean, I guess just for clarification, and I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. I don't know if anybody else had questions, but I mean, we are going through, I mean, there's going to be new contracts at some point, right? So we don't know the actual fiscal impact because we haven't gotten through the bargaining. So I just want to put that on people's radar, but we're talking about 1 employee, so I guess it's pretty minimal. Any other questions or comments, counselors? Okay, are we all good to go on this request? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much, Chief McGanny.
All right, so we'll dive into the rest of it.
Yes.
If you look up at the screen, you'll see, like I said, 99% of the items that are in here have already been either in front of council, have been approved between January and today through contract amendments, things you've already approved. Those are here, or carryover. These are carryover items that were already approved in the 23 budget. That projects that didn't get done, they're now just being reappropriated in the 24 budget, just carryover money. So some of the examples you'll see here, the Common Street contract that came to you and began in January, $212,000. We're formally adopting that change with this amendment. It's already has council approval. The items you just saw there with the chief and the both chiefs were new items. So this is the general fund impact. Again, everything's previously been approved in that upper section. So pretty minimal impact to the general fund.
Just clarification though, I mean, like for instance, the last item, increase in capital and facilities for Navy Museum project.
Yes.
That's what was brought today?
No, that is a
thank you.
project that was funded actually by the Navy. We got revenue for that in 23. This is the expense authority carried into 24 to complete the project net zero to the
Thank you.
city.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was HVAC. Mass communications project that's funded by the Navy. There was a dehumidifier years ago, if you remember, but that was a different project. So yeah, so that's what that is.
Thank you.
Other significant dollar amounts, but again, previously it's just carryovers. If you look at the transportation capital fund, I'll actually stop before I get to that one, but we'll look at real estate excise tax. both items here. One is, you see for the Evergreen Boat Ramp that came to council, $200,000 appropriation to complete that project going into Parks Capital. And then this is for carryover increase in the REIT, which is already budgeted in 2023, just going into 24, about $933,000 to support our transportation capital projects. This money was already budgeted in 23, just coming in 24. And show. So you can see here, revenue that was budgeted in 23. Again, these are reimbursement grants. You can see $9,112,000 of revenue that we expected in 23, but delays to projects push that revenue expectation into 24. And then you'll see so the capital project carryover of $10,743,000 into 24 from the 23 budget. And the detail is down below the different funding sources. So again, all previously approved by council or carryover. With that, I'll pause for questions, but again, mostly housekeeping.
Okay, finance committee members, is there anything else you want to add? I mean, I know that I mean, we do this every year, this is expected, but is there anything you want to add first, finance committee members? Nope, Eric says no. Okay, councilors, questions? Anna?
Thanks, Council President. So the 933K for transportation capital projects, can you break that down for us a bit, please?
We received that. That's built up in Public Works and their team there to identify all the projects that they need carryover for. It's a very extensive list. I need them to probably walk through that. At this time, I don't have that detail to prepare for here. It was, again, funding that's already been approved in the budget. We're just carrying it over in the new year. So.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff?
So to make sure, if possible, when this comes to general business, is it possible to get a list of all the previously approved and not previously approved kind of on one page? Just want to make sure it's transparent, all the different deltas.
I'm sure I can come up with, if you go through all the pages, it's only a couple of pages that has changes. It's only down to like 4 or 5 funds. So we could get that for you.
I appreciate it. Yeah. I just want to make sure we're looking at all the ones that are not previously approved. So under BCAT 113 is 5,000 for an electrical panel upgrade.
Yeah, here to answer questions if you need to. It's their own fund. They needed to do had a contract for that. Kitsap County required an upgrade to their electrical panel to complete the work. That's the dollar amount that's required. So we added to their fund. Again, it's they control. It doesn't compete with other funds. It's just out of their fund balance.
Okay. That one's fine. But then there was another significant one. If I'm scrolling back, I guess for water utility cartograph software.
And that's more of a vacation. It was existing in another budget. So we didn't come to council. We need to reallocate it to hit the appropriate funds. That's already been budgeted in the previous year.
Okay, thanks for that one. And then so that's also in there along with.
It's in stormwater as well.
Stormwater. Okay.
Yeah, to reallocate the cost across the utilities or asset management software.
Okay. Perfect. I think that was it. And you talked about the fish barrier course project already. Excellent. The other question I had, just mid-year budget adjustment, was I know we had an agreement to look at the golf course net revenue to date. We talked about when we passed the budget last year that we would, at the mid-year budget adjustment, look at that fund because there was a projected 200,000 excess. I know we talked real briefly in another meeting. And so I want to make sure before we pass this, I want to make sure we do that review that we agreed to do, to look at, see if there's any ability to transfer some of it to parks.
Yeah, so the review has been done. The fund balance is healthy. I would encourage I believe the council is going to do a tour of the golf course to talk about the master plan of the golf course. And then based on some of those discussions, have a discussion. We could do a year-end amendment if needed to move money or move money between now and the year end. That's possible to do that. We're not able to incorporate that in this mid-year, but definitely we still sweep money if it's found viable. They have significant capital projects, significant capital costs that are being requested in next year's budget because of cost increases.
Could we get,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead. I had another.
Yeah, just because I'm just tagging on to what you're asking, Jeff, which is completely valid. So do you want to tag up on this item after we do the golf course and get their presentation and then have a discussion about this? Or do we want to do it before we do the golf course?
Well, it's one other question I had too, and sorry, this isn't a gotcha, just reviewing, you know, a couple hours before council here. Is the June monthly budget status out? 'Cause I saw through May was available on the website, but I don't know if June with the existing. you know,
June
projections.
should be out shortly. I believe
Okay.
they were just closed June. So yeah, our budget analyst just returned from vacation, as I mentioned previously. So I don't believe it's out yet, but it should be close.
Okay.
And she returned ill,
Yes.
what I
yeah,
remember.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
So
I just kind of feel strongly that since we agreed that we would do that just to get that information and know, I would really like to know.
I have the
what
fund balance. So if I could, so we have the fund
Yeah.
balance. So I think you're asking me, have I done the analysis? The answer is yes. Do I agree we should sweep money right now? No. Based on the needs of the golf course, I'd like the golf course to probably present their needs to the council and the council make an informed decision if you'd like us to move money. Right now, the fund balance is $2.9 million. There is a significant irrigation project. Some of the other things we're doing, the equipment package we had originally planned for about $500,000 a few years ago. We did the first one. The delays in the assets, those costs significantly increased. I think I mentioned this before. We're seeing a reduction in fleet. Some of the chassis costs or chassis, that's a hard thing to say. The chassis costs are coming down. So like our patrol vehicles, we're seeing like 2019 numbers. What we're not seeing in specialty equipment, they're still up like 25 to 27% on like a Toro mower. So to get trying to figure out what that number is and then be able to really provide an educated number to council. Once we get that information from golf, what their true needs are, what their wish list is, and then know what that fund balance number is and what we could sweep. I believe there's still money there to move, but today I don't feel comfortable just saying, let's just move 500,000 without having that discussion from the golf course here with
Fair
the
enough.
council.
Okay, so
Yeah, I just think I would like to see that, just that information, just those numbers written as part of this analysis and showing what our original projections were, what the actuals are,
Yeah.
and then you know, just at least a listing of what they're expecting to spend if it's beyond what was originally budgeted, because it sounds like they may need to go over their budget for the remainder of the year if I'm hearing things correctly.
No, I think there's a capital spend that has not been budgeted that is going to be requested, and that will come as in the budget process. So those numbers keep moving because of the costs and what they want to do with the course. So I think that presentation should come to council from our operators out there, and then to be able to make this adjustment.
Okay, so the recommendation from Director Riley is the recommendation. And so let's just take a pause for a moment because I want to make sure I understand what the conversation is, and then let's figure out what we want to do with it. What I understand Jane, I got you next, and then Anna, but I want to make sure that Jeff still has the floor if he needs to summarize anything further. So we agreed last year to review the revenue at like a point in time, and have an analysis on the revenue from the golf course before we do our mid-year adjustment to see if there's anything we can move over into the parks. Right? That was kind of our discussion.
Right.
And so the request from our finance director with the city is to wait to do that until after we receive a presentation from the golf course. And we don't have to follow that recommendation, but it is, a request. Right.
Yeah.
And so
If
just real quick.
real fast.
Okay.
So I'm not asking to wait till 12/31/2024. I'm not asking to wait for budget. What I'd like to see is some of the proposals. We can move the money tomorrow. It doesn't need to be in the mid-year packet for you to move the money. I can have a proposal at the next council meeting to move $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. The money that's sitting in golf isn't going to be appropriated and go away. That fund balance is still what's targeted for ending fund balance at 2.9 million.
Thank you.
So council has that discretion to move the money. I just want to have a little more discussion and council to be a little more informed what you see and what you'd like to do. That $3 million can get spent pretty fast on capital needs. So I want you to make that discussion once you have the information in front of you. So
Thank you very much, Mr. Riley. And so once again, the request is from our finance director is to wait until we see a presentation. But what I hear you saying, Jeff, is that, it's our due diligence to go back to that previous request, our previous agreement with each other to decide with the mid-year budget adjustment to make those changes. So let's have a quick discussion about what we want to do with this specific topic. And Jane, actually, Jeff, do you have anything further to add while you have the floor?
No, go for it.
Okay, Jane, go right ahead.
I think before we go do a tour of the golf course, that we should have a list of what their proposed capital spending is. especially their wish list. A wish list is something that every park has. So just because the money was generated in there doesn't mean it's all their wishes are granted. So I would like to see that before we go out to the golf course.
Anna?
I think we should get a presentation from the golf course here. You know, where there would be facts and figures that we could look at. Not while we're strolling around the golf course under the trees and, you know, looking out for small white balls heading for our heads. And this is something that we did make really, really clear last year. And I don't know, unless I'm completely off, these figures were not in the packet as of noon today. So that's not a lot of time to review them and to even have time to ask all of these questions. So I think a golf course presentation, whenever Council President, you feel that it can be on the agenda, is the way to go.
Denise?
I'm not going to just assume that we're going to be frolicking under the trees out at the golf course. I'm going to assume that we're going to get a presentation. I think that Councillor Mockler's point is really well taken. We need a formal presentation, whether it's at the golf course or whether it's here. I will, however, say that I think it's critically important. There is a division on this council around, it's a cultural division, I believe, around the golf course. And I'd like to be able to get through that and make some fiscal decisions. The investment in the golf course sometimes is worth it because it nets a profit, you know, and so I'm very well aware of the need for ongoing investment in properties. But I also think that we need a real robust discussion about that. So I certainly would not vote probably to move money until we get a full presentation from the golf course. And I love it out there. So I'm really looking forward to that tour.
So really the question that I'm asking you counselors is a presentation from the golf course with facts and figures going to hold us up from passing a mid-year budget adjustment? Jeff?
No, I think as long as we can get it scheduled in a timely manner, which it sounds like we can. But I would like to see the June, actuals or expenditures before we pass this. I mean, I'll highlight May is looking great at, 1.2 million extra revenue than budgeted year to date and about 400,000 under expenditures. So I didn't read that quite right, but anyway, that we're looking healthy, but I think due diligence on a mid-year budget update, we should just be able to see those actuals versus expenditures.
Jane?
First budget.
I agree. And I think it's important that not only we go out to Gold Mountain to take a look, but their presentation needs to be here where the public can listen in, not just us.
Yeah, and my recollection, Anna, when we went on the golf course presentation is we went in, we had some lunch, right? And then they had a TV and they gave us a little presentation out there about all the wishes that they wanted.
But mostly it was frolicking.
It was a lot of fun, which, that wasn't so bad. It was a nice day. So, Mike, I'm sorry, Director Riley.
Oh, no, thanks.
Mike Riley.
Thank you for
you're
being informal. To me, always Mike. So a couple things. So we're asking to move fund balance from their fund. That's not their decision. That's yours. So they're not gonna have a presentation on how much to move. What they are,
No.
so that's kind of for us to do the analysis.
They're not going to be proposing to move any money away. We understand that.
No, and they're okay with that. They understand it can't come over, but I don't think they're ready to make that proposal. When we're talking about what their budget's going to be and their spend, they're submitting their budget to us and we'll come to council. That's during the budget cycle. They also have a contract renewal that's going to be coming, and they do have a presentation to talk about the golf course formally at council coming up here soon after the visit, after the site tour. That would be in August. So the golf course should be coming, you're gonna get a lot of golf course conversation in the next, month, 2 months, 3 months be coming your way. What I'm proposing is to do analysis on the fund balance, look at the financials like, I'm gonna say Jeff today, since we are upstairs, just downstairs.
Exactly.
It's
Please,
a great
first name.
request. It's a good request. I'm trying to find that level of comfort of moving money from a fund until we know exactly kind of what those needs are and the true costs that are coming into for their capital ask and how much is really impacting the next year. Because I don't want to bring that fund balance too low. But so that's just where we're at.
So I think I mean, counselors, correct me if I'm wrong, but where we're at is we're not going to hold a mid-year budget adjustment for this, and that we want to have a presentation before we would propose any money be moved over anyway, right?
Yeah, and the financials coming in, Jim, seeing like the tracking numbers, they're good. The financials of the golf course are good. You're gonna see healthy numbers. I believe there's some money to be moved. I'm just trying to find out what that dollar amount before I propose it to you. It will be coming, and it doesn't need to be at 12/31. It can be anytime between now and say September 1st, October 1st, if there's still a healthy fund balance there.
Anna, what was your,
So what is the disadvantage, and I'm sure it's a large disadvantage, to holding postponing the decision on the mid-year budget until after we've had the presentation from the golf course?
Pretty substantial. Resetting the mid-year to reset our budget targets as we build current budgets going forward has an impact, so we can reset our current numbers. I'd definitely propose that this gets passed, typically on consent, and we revisit the conversation of moving money from one fund to another without any planned expenditure. Also, this money is going to go from golf into parks capital with an planned project that was going to take months to develop. So I would say it's just moving money. If you're going to ask me to move money, that it can happen outside of the mid-year adjustment.
can I do a quick and I'm just standing up because my watch is bossy and said it's time to stand up. But can I just do a quick temperature check? Does anybody want to hold up our mid-year budget adjustment for the golf course? Just temperature check on that. Yes, no. I mean, I'm just kind of feeling like let's move forward, but we put the call out. We know, what we want. So let's get that revisited probably in our finance committee first. Is that where you want it to go through first, or does it need to come? I feel like that's the most appropriate place. Come to finance first, a review and analysis of the golf course funds, including the June analysis. It's not out yet. June and July will be at the next one. Okay. And then a report out. Go right ahead, Jeff. What do you think is a good plan for us to propose?
I was just saying, I think we should, so two separate issues. No, not hold this up for the golf course, but yes, hold this up for June's financials.
Okay. Yes, hold what up for June? Can you clarify that, what you're saying, Steve?
I would not vote for the mid-year budget adjustment until we have the June actual versus budget numbers. Because I think it's our due diligence to track what our revenues are. From May,
Okay.
we're looking good, but if we had any situation where it was not looking good for the rest of the year, then
So next week?
I believe they'll be posted by then. I don't want to promise. So if they're not, I guess take a vote. But I will do our best to get it up. I've got to meet. I told our budget analyst has been out of the office in and out of country. I guarantee she did not work on it while she's in Ireland. I believe she's close, but she's feeling better. She's been back to work, so I think we're close. But I don't want to speak for her to say by Wednesday. It should be
All right.
up and ready.
Let's
It's a fifth Wednesday.
it's a fifth Wednesday.
Your June numbers will be posted by then.
Okay, all right. So let's move right along. We stopped, we talked. Eric, any final thoughts about anything we've been talking about? If you had something to say, you would have said it probably, right? Okay. All right, let's move forward. On the presentation, were there any other questions that counselors had? Not the presentation, but the questions from counselors on the mid-year budget adjustment? Okay. So it sounds like we kind of do we want this on general or consent? I mean, there's no public hearing for this, right? It's just okay. So
Typically
general
consent.
or consent? General. That's what I was figuring. Okay. General business for the mid-year budget adjustment. Anna, yeah.
Thanks. Is there any possibility that the golf course could present on at our first meeting in August while this is on general business?
We can't answer that because it would mean we're it would mean extending an invitation, so we can't answer for them. So do you want me to extend an invitation for the August? Go right ahead.
Say no, because it'd be tough to take action on it. I think better in a study session and then we can discuss
Thanks.
it. And then if there's a number, between 0 and whatever.
Okay. All right. So we'll have this on general business. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give us a break here I'm going to give us a good 10-minute break. Well, I mean, 6:10. I want to call the meeting back to order. Okay. So I'm going to give us a break before the next item and then we'll come back for the last one. Okay.
Recording stopped.
Need some more water.
Yeah. Like, so I met with her once and was wondering if I'd like to meet again. That she would like to do. City on properties, not the whole long, right, in the short list. She sees, it's like, she does. That's what she's doing now. Oh. She's finding. And one of the projects she must do. Where you want the part. Well, where they're already putting in. Yeah. Yeah, so it can't, it's a lottery. Utility project. It's lottery. Thank you. Is it going? It was. Okay. But there's things. Yeah, well, we've been looking at a bunch of them. I think if they've identified some properties, they need to bring it to the city. They need to start. Yeah. But I think that's great. I don't know that I would go out and work it before. One thing, I don't know. I don't, it's not there. Well, you use something that once found. Yeah, she was, like, she got it. It's. I wouldn't. So from then on, I said I don't. Like later this year, obviously. I'm home, yeah. I would really like your advice. Or yeah, have lunch, coffee with they are. I'm on vacation. So is then Brinfield must be. This is Peninsula Services. Oh, okay. Okay, they used to be the art. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They used to be the art, so it's Peninsula Field as the new housing. Oh, yellow. Yeah. That's Peninsula Services. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I didn't see it. I'm really glad that they changed the name. So are they no longer a member of ARC National? Who knows? Yeah. I have to go be a criminal. Yeah. Criminal addict. Yeah. Yeah. But I would love to talk. Weather is beautiful for you. Yeah. Yeah. Come walk through the park with me. I would love. Okay.
I should stop.
I would really feel that. I'm pitching the community garden. Oh, decorative fence. I'm hopeful. If there were wood, I would be no.
Got it, Chief. Okay. Alright. Because we were on step. So it's like, but you just have a like quick watch out of it. Yeah. That sounds fine. What I say, but I think, you know, what I say. And it's probably to say that council, right? It did. It's a city council. It's spread. Have 2 weeks to look back. And if you have 2 weeks to look back. And then they can send you what questions they Yeah, and then we can include, I'll just talk to Jeff about it, see if the city. I'll talk to Jeff about it. Sounds good. Okay. Yeah. So when. Okay, all right. We're gonna just go to it. All right, it's after 6:10. We have a quorum. I'm gonna go ahead and call this meeting back to order. Recording in progress. Recording in progress.
Recording in progress.
Okay, I'm calling the meeting back to order. It is 6:11. Let's see, we're just waiting on one other council member. He'll be back shortly. But next up, I'd like to, you're on my script, Mayor Wheeler, but you may not be on the actual agenda. And so welcome, Mayor Wheeler and Police Chief Tom Wolf to present on item A4. Ordinance to amend Bremerton Municipal Code, Chapter 9.32, entitled Unauthorized Camping. Now, before you get started on your presentation, Counselor Fry, was this discussed in public safety?
No, there really wasn't time, and Chief Wolf did call me and fill me in on it, and it is scheduled for our next one, which is August 1st, in case.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the
yeah.
same presentation basically is going to be on the August 1st
It's scheduled for
public
that.
safety. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we'll still hear it, but just know, every counselors, that this is already going back to a committee for review. All right.
If I want to make clear that it was understood that if council wants it to go back to, that's why I put it on as a holding place. After I talked to the chief, I said, well, as chair, I can put it on the agenda for August 1st. So I went ahead
Perfect.
and did that.
All right. All right, gentlemen, thank you for being here and take it away. Do you need two mics?
No,
Okay. All
no,
right.
just one.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think after we make this perfectly clear to you guys tonight, we'll save everybody a lot of time and we won't have to send it back to committees and stuff. I have great hope for that. So basically, council, one of the things that we operate in law enforcement is predictable is preventable. So if we can predict a problem, we can prevent a problem. So what I have before you is kind of numbers from 2019, 2023, and 2024. 2019 is our old ordinance, no camping, no shelter requirement. As you know, the Ninth Circuit Court had a ruling that basically mandated the city to provide shelter. And it made its way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, no, cities, counties, you're not on the hook for that. You don't have to do that. But since 2019, we've all had a lot of experience with camping, with tent cities, with all kinds of homeless issues and the impacts it had right here at home for us, and some very negative impacts. So as your police chief, I'm tasked with peace and safety. And I watched in 2023 as people died. And it was a result of all kinds of different things, but we had a tent city down here and people were in those tents and they were dying of fentanyl overdoses, meth overdoses, cocktails, or whatever. It could have been prevented. It could have been avoided. So in 2019, you had enforcement, not a lot of compassion. Just don't camp here, don't care where you go, just go. And I don't think anybody liked that. I think you have to have a compassion piece to that. 2023, I think we had all compassion, no accountability. And what we ended up with was toxic compassion. People died. We enabled people to death. We fed them. We let them do their drugs. We let that happen and people died. And there's a human toll to that. There's a human toll on the officers, on the paramedics, on the citizens that had to watch that happen day after day. And we have a very young police department. They didn't know they were signing up for that. That's hard on people. I've been around, I've seen a lot of things, and I'm telling you, what I saw down on MLK Way, it gutted me. And I said, never again. So that's part of my presentation to you, my lived experience, and I hope you hear passion from your police chief that we can do better as a city. One of the things you have to have is you have to have accountability. If you have no accountability and you only have compassion, it leads to cruelty. And I think what happened down on MLK was cruel. So that's why I'm bringing this to you and pointing out to you. So we put up a bunch of numbers here for you. You guys all have this packet and a chance to look at that. I'm a big proponent of don't put people to death through PowerPoint presentations. So I can go through the numbers if you want, but in your own time, you can just see that the spike in calls, the spike in everything. And what we did was we tried to give you a picture of MLK, 8th Street, the area directly impacted by our tent cities, and calls for service. On the second page, if you can roll to that, you see the spikes there are 2023 in just everything going on there. And the next page, 8th Street calls for service, Broadway, next page, MLK, off the charts. And then the final page, showing you, that cases in 2019 referencing camping, 2023 and 2024. What we're looking at. We're looking at arrests in 2019, even though we had a no shelter requirement, an anti-camping, still no arrests, because I think there's kind of this theory or lore that the police, all we want to do is arrest people. And that's not correct. What we tried to do is get compliance. We're doing our job the best if we get compliance. And so we talk to people, we work with people. In 2023, of course, no arrest. 2024, we've had 4 cases. One of them was a actual just straight up no camping person, complete violation, would not. The other 3 had other violations associated with that. So 4 for 2024. But in 2024, what we have is we have something different. We have Common Streets working for us now. We have compassion. We have a resource. We have someone partnering with people that are out there, our Rock the Block and other agencies, our Heart team. Some of them are here tonight. If we have questions that they can answer for you too. That's something we didn't have in 2019. So 2024, and why I say if tomorrow the Salvation Army caught fire and we put everyone on the street, we're going to go right back to a tent city. And we know what happens with that. If, we have our community partners working on shelter, that's coming. We have Mile Hill coming. That should November, December is what I'm told. We're going to have shelters. If we don't have a shelter requirement in our ordinance, it also allows our partners in Common Streets and other places to take resources that they are aware of in other counties and other places. Some of these people here aren't from Bremerton. They're from everywhere. And if we can find them a drug rehab, which we know we don't have drug beds here in Kitsap County for people. So if we can find resources, it opens up a lot more doors and ability and flexibility. I think that these numbers really show that. And then kind of one of the last things we wanted to point out, and I'm not a numbers guy. Eric, I'll probably frustrate you greatly with this. But we're trying to show what does it cost? What does it cost? So we said if we send 2 officers for 10 minutes to every call that we had and, use the bottom salary, very lowest number. So for 6th Street, 8th Street, Broadway, MLK, for 2019, the amount of time we spent on calls in those areas was about $8,000. Again, it's more than 2 officers. It's more than 10 minutes. These are just baseline comparisons. But for 2023, when we had a tent city going on, that's $40,000. That is, you have 5 patrol districts. That's 3 or 4 or 5 officers tied up in one patrol district the majority of the time. Most of our calls are being sucked up in one patrol district. Some of your districts aren't getting the services because of that. And then as we've gone into 2024, we're watching those numbers drop when we don't have a tent city down there. So that's trying to capture some of the costs, just give you apples to apples. And those are the numbers. The other things that as you got the whole purpose too is we also have neighbors down there. We have a Marvin Williams Center. We have a school going into the Marvin Williams Center this year. We're going to have a high school, basically, group of kids coming and going every day from our Marvin Williams Center. And I want to create a safe area for them, a safe zone to come and go. And working tirelessly, Salvation Army they've really stepped up, and they're continuing to look at other things to do that they can to help with that. That's as far as I have, and I don't want to go on and beat it, but I've also asked Director Nucky to join us to talk about the costs to the city. So I'll let him take the mic and kind of keep going with that theme.
Who's doing the slides? It wasn't on the thumb drive? Okay. All right.
it in the- is it in the
Well,
packet?
I have one copy of this and I'll get copies out to you. Excuse me?
I'm just double checking that it wasn't in the packet, which I don't think it was.
No, that's okay. I thought I got it done. Anyway, let me do, so I will read my slides. So we took a look at the calls to our customer response. And we looked at 2023 and 2024, and approximately 20%, so a little bit less than 20% are homeless related. And they're increasing, and we're on pace right now in 2024 to have a 30% increase over 2023. In 2024, we forwarded 104 of the calls that came into Common Streets, and we work very closely with Common Streets. And then what I wanted to do is kind of break down and kind of explain how homeless response to the city is managed by the various divisions of Public Works. And so let me just kind of go through each of those. So the first one I wanted to talk about was our administration and customer response. So again, about 20% of the calls are home. One person who told customers, and in past years, that was a part-time job. It was most of a day, but probably, I don't know, 5-6 hours of a day. And then the other 2 or 3 hours of the day, that person would back up the water crew because they're actually on the water crew and then with, various things. It's a full-time job right now for that person, to the point that, and that person works for Chance Perfume. Chance is actually thinking that we might end up having to try to allocate some additional resources, labor over to assist that person. That person typically is on call essentially now currently to Common Streets to go and pick up garbage if Common Streets is having an interaction with the person and there's garbage to be picked up. He'll actually go out and pick that garbage up. Our customer responders also, I sent an email out yesterday about our kind of emerging response to odors in the downtown area. And so that person's going to be the person who does the application of the sanitizer deodorizer in order to, address those issues. Our street maintenance, the level of cleanup varies, but it definitely includes daily trash pickup, and also human waste by streets, by our customer responder, and also by our facilities crew. And again, our street maintenance is also essentially on call to Common Streets when garbage pickup exceeds the capabilities of the customer responder. And if you think about it, that's a pretty significant impact to our street crew because it pulls them off of work that they're doing for for maintaining the streets in the city. So it's definitely an impact to them. We have the street division gets involved in the larger cleanups, last December, the crew had to construct a road through our utility lands in order to get to an encampment in order to clean it up. So that was a fairly large activity. Our facilities crew deals with cleanups in parking garages. In years past, they used to clean the garages 1 day a week. They're currently at 3 days a week, and they're considering increasing to daily. It is because of trash and human waste that they're picking up regularly. They've been deodorizing using the same material that we're looking at using on the streets. They've been using that to sanitize areas where people have relieved themselves for almost 2 years now in the parking garages. And it's an almost daily activity for these folks to go out with shovels and clean human waste up. They do on-call response to the library, and what that means is about once a week they're called out to go clean up messes at the library, and about once a month at the court building. But they respond as called to those areas. And then the storm sewer crew actions that we've done, we diverted a storm drain catch basin into the sanitary system to address waste. And like the email that I sent out yesterday, we're looking at a more rigorous cleanup and cleaning program for the storm system. As far as costs go, we have recorded costs of about $92,000 for 2023. But that doesn't, excuse me. Okay. Well, it's a lot more than that. And I've got reasons for that, but it's a lot more than that. But let me just tell you, opportunity cost for $100,000, that's about 9% of our total street maintenance budget. That's the cost to construct 1,000 feet of sidewalk or the cost to pave a mile of roadway. So, and I think honestly, we clearly are underreporting at 91,000. I'll bet it's more than twice that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And this was all data that was related to an unauthorized camping amendment, counselors. So I want to just take a few moments and let me just kind of get a temperature gauge. First of all, I want to find out, do we want to continue to have discussion today, or do we want to refer this to a committee? So counselors, do you want to have a discussion right now then? Want to continue discussion? Okay, let's go ahead and have discussion on this. And I'm gonna let Counselor Fry lead us
I'm
off.
just confused because I was looking for information related to the removal of the shelter requirement, and I've not heard anything. I've heard the impact of homelessness, which boy, we know, and I appreciate that data, Tom. And Chief. Numbers matter. The impact to our community is incredible. We need to figure this out. We're with you. Removing the shelter requirement, I don't understand how that impacts the services the way you describe them. We've got common streets, and that, thank you, wherever you are. That's been a fabulous addition and one that we really supported. Removing the shelter requirement, how will that change the homeless situation that you're dealing with? How are calls going to go down if we're not, I don't understand that impact. And I truly didn't hear anything that I could relate to the removal of the shelter requirement.
So as concisely as possible, what we're trying to show you with the data that we did put up there is the difference between no shelter requirement. We allowed camping because we had a shelter requirement and no shelter. And so the vestiges of that we're still dealing with from, the carryover of our tent city that we had. And now, as our common street is actually accomplishing their job and what they're doing, our bed rates at Salvation Army, our only shelter, are now at wintertime levels. So they're actually getting people into shelter that wouldn't go normally, or they're getting people resources. That's what we want. We're identifying people that are just saying, nope, don't want any. And we can tell them, okay, then you got to go. You can't camp. You can't be here. If we fill the shelter, if the shelter burnt down tomorrow, if whatever happens, you have tent city overnight again.
I understand.
That's what we're
that.
trying to put a stop to.
But I personally just, I don't respond well to that. What if it burns down? What if this, what if that? There are so many incredible efforts out there right now within our community, so much money being invested in shelter services. And the scenario that you're painting, while it's certainly engenders fear, I don't think it's I don't think it's truly valid. So I guess I am saying, I do think it needs committee discussion. Cause I'm not getting it. I'm not, and that's just for me. That's just for me.
And I'm going to go ahead and take a stab. I'll try to be concise also. The data was meant to establish a baseline of the impacts today of homelessness. And this is with a shelter. This is with the shelter and us being able to enforce the camping law. So a lot of what you're hearing is criminal vagrancy. I mean, it's flat out, it is individuals refusing a option that we are providing them. So this is criminal vagrancy. When if we were to go back to last summer, which is the Supreme Court's given us this option to uncouple the shelter requirement. That's why we're bringing this to you. If you look back at last summer where we had uncontrolled, it was chaos on that street. It was an area where law enforcement could have little impact on protecting our community and actually protecting innocent people because of the amount of criminal vagrancy that actually came in on top of what you see already. We're asking the council to uncouple the shelter requirement so we never, ever go back to what we had. And so I don't want to, we all know there's scenarios where we could fill up our shelter. So it could be just an increased amount of this impact. It could be natural disaster. It could be the Salvation Army is done. They don't have to do this. So we are proposing this. I don't know if this helps answer the question of that you were asking, Councilor Fry. So
It's still not clear to me
Not
about
clicking,
the
okay.
shelter. So, but it's only because I don't believe that sky is falling, the sky is falling until I see signs that the sky is falling, and I don't see any signs that the sky is falling. So that's
All right.
just where I am.
I'm going to go to Jane next. You're also on the Public Safety Committee.
I mean, right now, you do have the authority to arrest criminal vagrants, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I don't really understand why taking away the shelter section of the ordinance will make any difference. I really don't. I mean, I know it's a huge impact, and I know there's criminal vagrants around. I also know there's a lot of severely mentally ill people in addition to people who are abusing drugs or alcohol on the street. So how is this going to make it easier for you to arrest criminal vagrants?
That's not the goal. The goal is not to have a tent city and have people die again like we had in 2023. We can predict that if it fills up, and we're working our way there. We're near bed capacity at Salvation Army. And when that happens, then it's ollie oxen free, and tents go up on the parking strip on Broadway again. and all up and down MLK and in your neighborhoods. And my hands are tied when that's not a requirement. The Supreme Court has alleviated the city from that. So that's what I'm trying to take you back to and say, yeah, in 2019, we didn't have tent cities.
We also had the Blake decision too, where you couldn't arrest people for drug usage. And now that has been modified too. So, you know, I was down on MLK last night talking to some people, and I know it's still a problem. I mean, Salvation Army kicks people out in between meals. There's no picnic tables or anything for them to sit out, even though volunteers have offered to bring some down. So all they're doing is sitting on the sidewalk, and, you know, I don't want to see that either. But luckily we do have at least 2 shelter options going on in a day center that hopefully opens fairly soon too. But I mean, what is the average count now at the Salvation Army? When we say it's going up,
Here, we need you to come on up to the mic for public. That's okay. We can probably hear you because you got a nice indoor outside voice too.
Tricia is with Common Streets.
Yes, Trisha, come on up to the mic. Thank you, ma'am.
So yeah, I'm Tricia Munson with Common Street. Salvation Army has been operating closer to wintertime numbers. I was talking to shelter staff and some of their leadership today. Specifically, capacity is 80. They've seen anywhere between 55 to 71 this week.
Is that the max that they normally have, 80, or is it 75?
I believe the capacity they stay at is 80.
That's fire occupancy probably. Is the
I'm
80,
assuming
you know.
so. I don't know all the details. I just know that does.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Please continue if you have another point to make. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Can I offer something on behalf of this? Is that allowed or?
Counselors, okay, yeah, go right ahead.
So
Trish,
one
thank
of the things that we see in this work in social services and in doing outreach is that, just as Chief spoke about on the other topic, there has to be that element of accountability and compassion. And so what we're talking about here is not making everyone who's camping take that shelter option or go to jail, because that's the law now. Nothing is going to change as far as what we do. They're still going to call us. We're still going to offer services. Where it's going to offer a change is in the people that are like, oh, you want me to pull over? I don't have to. There's a no pursuit law. I'm going to go ahead and go. Oh, you want me to go move my stuff and not camp here? I don't have to, because that's the law. Bringing that back into play, it's controversial. I get it. It's very controversial for all of us. However, it does offer us that opportunity for the people who are being resilient to change simply because they don't want to. We're not talking about the mentally ill folks who are not able to ascertain that concept. We're not talking about the people who have been banned from Salvation Army or from the other shelters, because that is an issue, right? But what it does do is it gives us the opportunity to offer that compassionate accountability. That gives us the opportunity to get more people some help.
Thank you, Trish.
Yeah.
Okay, Jane, do you have any further questions, or shall we pass it to
I
the
got lots
counselor?
of questions, but we can go to the next.
Let me ask you though, as a member of the Public Safety Committee, do you want to see this come back to Public Safety rather than going to a vote?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So basically what I'm hearing is there are 2 committee members that are here, would like to see this in committee, but let's continue with questions. Anna, and then Jeff, did you, yeah, okay.
So Jane, thank you for asking my question, which was what's in the current ordinance that prevents you from issuing citations or even arrests to people? And there doesn't seem to be any bar. I don't understand. I agree with Councilors Fry and Rebelowski. I don't understand why removing this option is going to make things simpler. Ms. Munson referred to that there's nothing in this ordinance that says you can't camp here, but in fact, the ordinance very specifically says you can't camp here if there's any room in a shelter. So I'm very baffled That's one. My second point is we're paying Common Streets 212K a year to reduce BPD time spent dealing with this situation. But that clearly has not happened based on the data that you have given us right here. Why is that?
Actually, the data does show you that since 2023.
I'm looking at the data right here where you say that potential increase of calls for service responsible for 6.2% calls for service. This year it's 7.2% calls for service. That's on the first page of your fiscal impacts.
Well,
Because that was one of the arguments that was presented for why we should sign the contract with Common Streets, was that BPD was spending a ton of time and that Common Streets would reduce that, but your own data is saying that in fact, it has not.
Actually, there's another way to look at it is before we had a tent city, it was 1.2%. Then we experienced a tent city and we're still have the impacts from what that brought to the city. And we are humanely and compassionately trying to address those issues. Again, you know, the viewpoint is that we're jackbooted thugs and we're out there screwing with the homeless. That's not the case. What we're trying to
I don't
do
think
is,
anybody on this council has that view
well,
at all.
well, we get some fun emails. So what I'm trying to say is that we're actually trying to prevent going into the future that happening. And for me, as I watch those shelter numbers climb up to capacity, I know where we're going. And how long would it take us to get something enacted and changed if that happened? Or would we? Or would we go right back to a tent city again?
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that point. Another reason we signed with Common Streets was that their superb history with providing data to cities. I see data from Bremerton Police Department, but I see no data from Common Streets in here. And I'm wondering, where is that data?
We've had Common Street come before council and brief you, and we're trying to do that quarterly. So
Okay,
that, you know, if you want more interaction, we can make that happen.
I would be perfectly happy to just have it emailed me. I don't want to drag Common Streets off the streets. And then my final question, and then one comment, and then I'm done. Is we received data from Rock the Block and some other groups last year, and I was wondering if you were able to bring in any of that data to compare to the data that we have here of like people who were taken to Bellingham, Everett, Tacoma, to chemical detox facilities there. Because I know Common Street is doing that, and that they have, and this was another persuasive reason, was that they have such wide contacts like throughout the Puget Sound region. So that data,
They do, but with our shelter requirement and the way that our ordinance is written, you know, we're missing out on that piece.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Being able to tap into resources outside of our county. We're not allowed to do that.
But Common Streets is, are they not?
No, they have to stay within our parameters that we've given them.
The municipal court was sending
Oh,
people
but-
to Tacoma.
let's let Anna continue. I know people have opinions.
No worries.
Okay.
So yeah, like that's data that I would really like. And then the final comment, I'm gonna actually stop talking. Is that I think we should definitely amend the anti-camping ordinance, and I think we should amend it as follows to.
Wait. We have an agenda item for this, Anna.
Oh, that's the discussion? We're not
That's
discussing
B1.
now?
B1 is that. I know where you're going with it. So you have that item, B1. Okay?
All right.
All right. Thank
Okay,
you.
so we're not discussing. And okay, so I'm going to use that time to say, I agree. Like, once the sky is falling, this council has leapt to aid the city every single time. But right now, there's no apparent sky falling. So
Thank you, Anna. Okay. Jeff?
So thank you. And I don't know, thanks for bringing this forward and bringing up a very difficult subject. I'm going to go back to what Denise mentioned to make sure I kind of understand things correctly. So I think I, absolutely understand the concern of what if we don't have available shelter space, get that. And I think for public safety discussing that, I would like to see the data over time of Salvation Army, firm update from the county on Mile Hill, any efforts since the ordinance does allow shelter to be anywhere within the county, if there's transportation efforts to look at transportation. I think having all those updates would be helpful. But on the piece of let's assume that we have available shelter space going forward and it's there. Just to get clarity, are you saying that updating the ordinance would, in that situation where we definitely had available shelter space going forward, that there's a benefit? And I think the one I'm hearing, and it's in the whereas, is it says, whereas limiting Common Street to only shelters within the city hinders their ability to assist unhoused persons obtain necessary resources. So can you talk more on that one of if we always have shelter space available, is changing the ordinance going to have a tangible impact?
The two biggest impacts I see are, one, we don't limit the city. So if we find ourselves without a shelter, then we find ourselves in a crisis again. And then two is it does open up the ability, if we have local shelters, of course, we're going to use them. But if we don't limit Common Street to just here, and we have people, and I'm specifically in my mind thinking about drugs, there's just not beds for drug addicts in Kitsap County. And they have resources across the state, and we can get people to other rehab in places. So, and if I'm wrong and that they can't do that under this ordinance, then I'm wrong. But my understanding is we're limited to Kitsap County.
So the ordinance is currently written, says that it can be enforced if there's available shelter space within the city, or if there's available shelter space in the county and free transportation is provided. I believe that's the extent of the current ordinance. So I'm not seeing what in that would prohibit Common Street from working to get transportation to a shelter in the county, or just in general, getting shelter space if there's something in King County or elsewhere.
And what I'm referring to is if we have a bed available for drug rehabilitation and it's in Thurston County, we can't access that. It's my understanding
That this ordinance limits it.
that's how it was explained to us. So
And the Attorney General can weigh in. Yes.
Hi, so I think there's two different conversations going on right now.
Thank you, Kylie.
Under the Grants Pass case, as the Ninth Circuit decided it, the shelter needed to be available relatively close. There was actually a statement in there that it needed to be within the city limits. Some cities were looking at whether that included maybe contiguous areas if transportation was provided. So when council undertook drafting the ordinance this time last year, we were looking at that language, and that's what was incorporated into the ordinance. And so I think what's being said here is that if there's a bed in Thurston County and there was a person here and they did not want to go to Thurston County, then that would not be considered available shelter for purposes of enforcing the ordinance. Does that make sense? However, if the person wanted to voluntarily go to treatment in Thurston County and Common Streets wanted to assist with that, that could absolutely happen. But because of the way it was written at the time it was written, we were looking at areas close to Bremerton, which we know don't include much in the way of drug treatment facilities and detox facilities. And so those weren't considered available shelter spaces outside of this area. Does that make sense?
So just clarifying, so getting drug treatment, having a bed at a drug treatment facility is considered an available shelter?
I was just using that as an example.
Okay.
Is if there was shelter space like in another area and that Common Streets was aware of that and they were willing to take them to, Pierce County or Gig Harbor or wherever, Mason County, if they opened something. Right now, as it's written, it wouldn't count as available shelter, even if they were willing to get, it wouldn't count as available shelter under our ordinance. I can see on, when-
Well, who has the floor right now? Which counselor are we still on, Jeff? Jeff has the floor, so I'd like you to continue. Do we have any clarification that Common Streets wants to provide, or do you want to defer to to Chief Wolf here? It's okay, you can defer to him because he's the expert in the matter, so. I could see her back there wanting to say something, Chief Wolf. I don't mean to usurp you.
But it's really not relevant. So
Me too.
there is definitely two
just-
conversations going on here to assure council we are utilizing resources all over the state. I'm really not hungry. Thank you though. We are utilizing resources all over the state. We have a plethora of resources. As a matter of fact, we've housed people out of this area because that's what was suitable to their needs. So yes, we are utilizing that. But you are exactly correct in what they are referring to as an available shelter bed. The ordinance doesn't prevent us from doing that. It prevents law enforcement from being able to enforce the no
Right.
camping rule for that reason.
Okay,
So
thank you.
that is, and yes, we are like, we were back there going, no, we're all over the place.
I
We're
know you
visiting
are,
everyone."
and so that's why I wanted you to provide that clarification. Thank you so much.
Yes,
Trish.
absolutely.
Jeff, please continue if you have any further questions for Chief Wolf or the mayor. I mean, he's
No,
here
I think
too.
that's making more sense and committee can discuss it more. Is that the only, in a perfect future where we always have available shelter space? Is that the only change to the ordinance that would have an impact?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's all I got for now. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, Eric, you're up.
Trying to determine, maybe you guys can help me out on the council, short-term versus long-term memory. Last summer, not only did we have this whole area filled with people with concerns about the homeless camping on Broadway, MLK, 6th Street, 8th Street, other places. But the entire summer, as you walked the communities, you saw what happened. I had several conversations with our fire chief, and he's out here. He can correct me if I'm wrong. And he could better relate the stories, but Chief McGanny was telling me about his firefighters addressing someone that overdosed on fentanyl in one of these camp areas, and they'd revive them, not even say thanks. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then that day or the next day, start the cycle all over again. You have your police chief up here asking for help. I think Chief McGanny would echo the same sentiments. We need help. This is common risk management. I remember saying last summer, never again. We passed this ordinance. I didn't like it. I wanted option C that allowed the city to go concurrently. I don't need to rehash that, but the council effectively took that away. The city's not in the shelter business, period. We're relying on outside providers. This ordinance is if the outside providers don't step up and provide enough shelter beds, then the city has to be able to gain control again of the city. We cannot allow last summer to happen again. If you pass this ordinance as it's presented, now we got the tools in the toolbox to prevent last summer from happening again. If you don't do it, shame on us. Oh my goodness. You have your subject matter expert. That's the difference. We've got Common Street. It's not just, oh, we're going to make it illegal. We're going to make it hard on them. Let's have some compassionate accountability here. I don't know what else to say. This should be passed as is. Just strike the language about available overnight shelter, just as the ordinance is written. It's not just these places. You can have people camp in the right of way. That means right in front of your house too. If there's not enough available bed space, they're going to camp right in front of you too. It can happen. Do you want that? And more importantly, do we want to aid and abet these campsites being set up and seeing what happened last year all over again? Hell no. This doesn't need to go to committee. This should go to a vote. Thank you.
Okay, so I think it's my turn, Jane. Yeah, that's okay. I think what I want to do instead of doing another round of questions, I feel like there's a lot still to process. I want to get a temperature check and find out, do we want to send this to committee or do we want to continue talking about it here and now and send it to a vote next on the 7th? Is it the 7th? I'm so sorry.
Clarification, the Public Safety Committee meets on the 1st. The next council meeting is on the 8th.
On the 8th, thank
And I
you.
think
Oh,
that
that's
might be a
Wednesday, August 7th.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have a public safety committee meeting before the next.
I don't know that,
Council meeting.
I tend to agree with Eric that we're discussing it now, sending it back into committee. Although Michael Goodnow, who's co-chair of the Public Safety Committee, hasn't had the benefit of tonight's, discussion. I really hope that this isn't a my shelter versus your shelter type of situation, that we don't have control over a city shelter. And so now we think there's not going to be any shelter and we're scurrying to, I don't get, this came so quickly and it came after a call from the newspaper and I don't like it. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like I respect the counsel of Chief Wolf incredibly. I haven't heard the need for it. I really haven't. It's if. And I haven't, has there been one night that we've turned people away from the Salvation Army? Has there
Denise-
been one day?
I want to ask, just to clarify, do you want to see this go back to committee or do you want to see it go to a vote on the 7th?
I say we take it to a vote. Let's get some.
August 7th?
Let's get some community representation as well.
I mean, Jane, what are your thoughts as public safety committee member?
Well, seeing as we've all been talking about it, I think that just doing it on Public Safety Committee alone probably isn't a good idea because we all have some different thoughts on it. So I think going for a vote, a public hearing so that the public can weigh in before we vote.
Yeah.
And if this made, especially Public Works, this discussion has made it even more clear that we need some public bathrooms downtown instead of
Okay.
people.
So what I hear you saying is you'd like to see it at public hearing, like have a public hearing prior to a vote? Is that what I hear you saying?
No, probably, well, no, just to give the public general business, let them, the public weigh in.
And I'm just curious what the rush is. I guess what the rush is. I do want to make sure that we all have reference back to our September packet that was 1,200 pages. That has as much has. It was about 1,200 pages, over 1,000 pages, September 20th. So we can always review that if we need to look for. I mean, seriously, you guys weren't like me. You didn't take them and print them out and put them into 2 piles like I did or 3 piles. I did. Jeff, we can come in. We can get back. Let's not kill any more trees right on it. I got that. I still got them upstairs. Jeff?
So the only reason I appreciate Eric's comments, but the reason not to rush it is I think we're having those questions of due diligence, right? What have we been doing as a city to do our part? What has been the coordination with the county? What are other folks doing, right, in terms of providing resources? Because we have those values that we want to do our part here, right, while also establishing reasonable boundaries. But what I'm hearing the main argument for doing this is what if shelter space fills up? Fair enough. What we don't quite have the data in hand is what has been the shelter space percentage over time. What is the trend? Where have we been? Where are we going? Is there an urgency or not? And that's just what I think is if we're not saying, oh my gosh, the Salvation Army has just filled up now, right? You need to act now. That would be one thing. But if we're hearing it's creeping up there, right? It's not urgent in the next week or two. I think it's our due diligence to take an extra week or two and just keep having this, have this discussion a little more, get a little more data, and then we can take action. But we're just getting this now.
Anna, just your feelings. Do you think we should take it to committee or do you think we should take it to a vote on the 7th? I already know where Eric stands, so we.
Well, the two members of the Public Safety Committee think it should not go to committee. So
Okay.
I'm glad with that. I would like the chance before this ends to ask one clarifying question of Chief Wolf. So
Go
whenever
for it.
you're
Yeah,
ready.
go for it then.
Yeah, now?
Okay, go for it now.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Chief, I want to make sure I have this completely right. So can you explain to me what in this ordinance prevents you from issuing a citation or an arrest to someone who is camping while shelter space is available?
Nothing,
Nothing.
nothing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So 2, 3. No, we have a 5th Wednesday, so we're going right to right. So, I'd like to propose a public hearing. And then I guess I am hearing that you want to take it to a vote, but I also feel like Jeff, go right. You have a suggestion. I'd love to hear it.
So sort of jump in. I mean, so you could do a public hearing. Somebody could make a motion. Somebody could then make a motion to, table it to another
Table
week.
it.
And if there's compelling evidence at that point of, so I think we've probably gotten out what we want to see data wise, right? But on top of what we've got presented tonight, if we get that data next week, maybe that helps solidify a decision or not. And if we don't get it or it hasn't helped solidify, then someone could make a motion to table if someone makes the original motion in the first place to pass it.
So then, for our city attorney, we should be prepared with a couple of motions, on our, no, it's not how it's written on the agenda bill. Would we have an agenda bill attached, their agenda bill with a couple of recommended motions down below, or would we just
It could be motions to amend if,
motions to amend?
I mean, like if I
Yeah.
was gonna get real nitpicky, some of the whereases were confusing to read. you
Okay,
know, but-
so, do we need to have a public hearing or do we just take it to public comment? I mean, public hearing is public comment. So I don't know if it's necessary to have a public hearing.
General business, just like any other.
Okay.
There's not much to this. It's just to strike a couple paragraphs.
Not much to it at all. Not much to it at all. Mayor, Mayor, go right. Oh, sorry, Eric, you first.
Obviously, there's
Yes,
a lot to it, but what I'm saying is that it's pretty simple. The ordinance is simple. It doesn't, let's hear from the public and then vote accordingly. It doesn't, I don't see how you're going to change your mind, other than after listening to the public, which is very much valued. Maybe I'll change my mind, but it's not that complicated. Supreme Court made a decision. And prior to that, the Ninth Circuit, that made us put this decision in here. This was the Ninth Circuit that required us to do this. This is why we did it. Supreme Court said, you don't have that anymore. So now we can remove it. It's not that difficult. Either you want to remove it or you don't.
Could I offer a data point?
Yes, sir.
So August 1st, will be 9 months for the Salvation Army's scheduled closing. And so just wanted to remind everybody that we have 9 months, August 1st, before the Salvation Army closes their shelter, which will be May 1st, 2025.
I thought it was May. Somebody corrected me to March. I knew it was May 1st. So we have until, which is the reason why, I think some of us feel like it's not as urgent. Okay, so it sounds like the direction from council is to put on general business. We'll do public comment. And we'll have you back for the presentation on August 7th. Okay? All right. Anna,
And we'll have more data at that time.
so it's been asked the data that we're asking for. Hopefully we'll get from administration, but something I wanted to validate here, Common Streets has been coming to us quarterly. I do remember those presentations. So I want to validate that. Yeah, what were you going to say, Chief Wolf?
What data is it that you want?
We're asking for data similar to, so I think what they like is how, what some counselors are saying is Rock the Block is like, we've referred 120, I don't remember the exact figure, but we found housing and treatment for X amount of people. So I think we have received that in the Common Streets. We'd like to know, I'm just going to look directly at y'all because you probably know exactly what kind of data we might be looking for. And she's already nodding her head. Trish is on it, okay? In her mentally right now, she's got the gears going. So we want to know how many unique contacts, even just individuals that have been referred, and maybe even outside of our county versus inside of our county. You don't have that, that's okay. You're only in Bremerton. And so what you do, and I'm sorry, I guess I should probably call you back up. Come on back up, Trish, so we can get you on the mic, because it's just so we can clarify the data that we're asking from Common Streets, because that's, Jeff, that's what you want directly is Common Streets data?
No, no, I think the main data points I was looking for, assuming it's just written down daily, is what has been the capacity of Salvation Army
Okay.
going back the past several months.
Were you not asking for Common Streets data, or was that another counselor? Anna. Okay, so I guess, Anna, can you clarify what data points you'd like to see? Is it different than what I was saying? How many people have been referred to treatment? How many people have been referred to are in beds?
We do have a specific dashboard that we use, and we offer our unique sites visited, how many people we've contacted, how many people we've referred to outside services such as substance use, mental health, how many people are working a plan currently with us, and how many people we've housed. And so that's the basics of what we do. If there's something more that you want outside of that, we can certainly make that request. I would make a recommendation that as we've been here, we've developed some excellent community partnerships. And I think that the data from them would be very helpful, because if you ask them, they're all very busy too.
And Chief Wolf, are you able to ask them to email us this data ahead of time? We've got 2 weeks because we have the 5th Wednesday. So we can have it by email. It doesn't have to be a presentation. And then also the data points on the Salvation Army bed count, because you're saying that it's near 80. I thought their capacity was 74 or 75. I thought that's what occupancy was.
Correct.
So can we get those data points as well to know how many people are in?
Yeah, we check that almost daily.
I know you do. And so it's, if you do, so you like actually have a chart where you keep track of that sort of thing.
Is there any data that would, any of the counselors here that are feeling like you're against striking this from any data I could give you that outweighs the number of people that died in 2023?
You mean before the Blake fix?
Correct.
Yeah, before the Blake fix is not relevant to this because we've had the Blake fix. So your data is skewed.
Well, I
if you
disagree
use
because
those figures,
because
so that would not be an accurate measure.
Well, Counselor, with all due respect, the Blake fix didn't fix anything. The door was thrown wide open to fentanyl, and it's in by the truckload. It was $15 a pill. It's 50 cents a pill now.
Okay.
It is swarming through our city.
I understand.
And we have drug dealers that are low-level dealers doing $200,000 in product now. That back in the 90s, that's a high-level drug dealer. This is just a nobody. So it is washing over our streets right now.
So I just am speaking from a scientific perspective that the data would be skewed if you used data prior to the Blake fix. And I don't know, counselors, am I wrong in making that assumption? Okay. So Jane, go right ahead now.
I'd like some data on people that are playing you. Like you've gone to them 6 or 7 or 8 times and they tell you, yeah, I'm gonna do this. And they just go off and do whatever they're gonna do anyway.
It's
The criminal element
It
is
is
what
difficult to articulate that data. We can let you know how many people we've had multiple contacts with who are just moving along and declining resources. I will tell you from a social services perspective, we have to stay away from assuming people are playing us, because
Okay.
we always have to have that open mind that maybe this time they're going to say yes. And so it's not up to me to decide if they're being insincere or if they're being misrepresenting themselves about what they want, or if they're just playing the game. So
Yeah, well, that was something that some people in law enforcement had told me was one of the reasons why they wanted to modify the ordinance.
and that is accurate because again, we go back to that compassionate accountability of, and we see this happen when they do tell people now, you've got to go. Well, I'm working with Common Street and they think they tell them that and they call us out, or, they would like to work with Common Street. They call Common Street out, we get out there and they're like, no, man, we just want the cops off our back. So, sorry, we're out of here, whatever. So yeah, so I understand what you're asking for and I can let you know it's not going to be an exact science. It's not going to be a number I correct or I track, but I can let you know kind of roundabout how many people we see that are just refusing services. And that's kind of where we leave it because I don't want to make the assumption that they're playing us.
Yeah, and somebody who's refusing services but is no mental health professional has said that they're sane.
So what I want to make sure of, Jane, is that we're not going too far off because they have certain data sets they collect. I want to honor the dashboard and the data that you collect, and I want to see what it looks like. You don't have to create necessarily new data points for us for this particular presentation. I think I just would like to see your dashboard and the data you're already collecting personally.
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
then when
cool.
it's time for Common Street to come back and talk to you all, when we do those updates, if there is additional things you would like to see, if you give us some notice,
That's a great, yeah.
we're happy to be able to provide you with some of those examples or things.
So Common Street's dashboard printout, Salvation Army point in time, what would we call it, point in time of count? Bed count, as if it's rising, show us. I saw you over there, Jeff. We're thinking about the same thing. Is there a line or a bar graph that, something like that? We are, I think, did I miss any other specific data points that we can ask for?
RTP?
Huh?
The rock the block data?
Well, the rock the block data, I don't know that they have, that's not something that the police department and the administration can provide for us. So that's something that's been we can find as counselors in our prior packets if there's materials that were submitted in presentations. Eric.
Pictures are worth 1,000 words. So I'm asking that you take some pictures of the homeless camps from last summer and put them in the packet as well.
Okay. So we'll see you on August 7th. Okay. So let me just clarify, Denise, will we have this in the committee meeting or will it just go straight to general business? Okay, here we go, folks. Through another meeting. He's busy enough. I know. All right. Did you hear that, Chief? No need to come to Public Safety Committee because you'll just be to general business. Okay, you still have to come. Never mind. You don't have to. If administration allow, and I'm just going to stop. Okay, because there's a. Oh, good gracious. Okay, so I don't know what to say at this point, except we're going to move on to general council business. I put this, what's up? Item B1. So I put that on here. It seemed very apropos to put this on here because I had two counselors, and I'm curious about this discussion, who wanted to review the ordinance and talk about the terminology. I'm going to turn it over to Vice President Mockler, if that's okay, to kind of lead just a discussion on this and see if we want to move it any further. Yeah.
I do have a question. Item
Yes, sir.
B1, there's no material behind it as far as what the proposed language is. I looked for
Yeah.
it yesterday and I looked for it this afternoon. There's nothing. I click on the link and there's nothing. So
And I apologize. There was a miscommunication with staff. And so I apologize for that. Do you want to, we can put this off for another meeting if y'all want to do that. But can we just, we don't have to have supplementary materials to propose
I
something.
don't want to stop her. I mean, she should have her.
You are
shot at-
correct. There was
Go
no
ahead.
supplemental materials, and so that was a miscommunication. And I can own that. Thank you.
Okay, so if we are going to amend the anti-camping ordinance, and then I would like to add to the definitions that voluntary means voluntary as defined by a mental health professional. That's it.
And was there another counselor that, because you had copied Jane. So Jane, were you another counselor who was interested in seeing this move forward? I'm interested in the discussion. Counselors, do you want to have this discussion today?
Could it be a friendly amendment when it goes to general business?
It can. Yep.
There's all those definitions, this is what camping means, and so this is what voluntary means.
So, Jeff, go right ahead.
I was just so I can understand the proposal, which specific subsection I'm looking at the definitions. Okay.
9.32.010 definitions, the following definitions. If you look at the second paragraph of A, and the second sentence of that paragraph, it begins, person is unable to utilize an available overnight shelter due to voluntary actions such as, et cetera. The overnight shelter space shall still be considered available. So it's just making sure that voluntary is not, is defined by a qualified mental health professional. That's the
I
entirety
see
of
it
it.
now. Okay, end of the
Yeah.
second paragraph, right before section B currently. Okay.
Yeah, because so many people still there's still such a stigma about mental health and lack of knowledge about it. That's the only reason.
So, Eric, did you have any? I was just going to make a recommendation.
I'm thoroughly confused because the ordinance says in our packet strikes that whole thing.
Yes.
So then there's no need to get into voluntary as a definition because voluntary is not referenced anywhere else.
You are entirely correct, as always. However, that is this is the proposed amendment that the administration has brought to us. And I am proposing the only amendment that I have wanted to make to this ever since we passed it last year.
Okay, I understand. So
Yeah.
basically you want the ordinance as it currently is written and then just have a definition for
Correct.
voluntary.
That's correct.
So-
And I'm so sorry.
So that wouldn't necessarily be. Oh, okay, it's a different version. Just work president and the city attorney can work out the language of what that is.
And I think what I want to make sure of is that we have just a general desire for this kind of amendment to be brought forward. I mean, it can always be in a friendly amendment, but I mean, I need to make sure that it's okay with y'all if we work with our city attorney. What do you want to see this amendment? Do you want to see a proposal for this amendment in our next packet? We can put it off to a study session, or we can have the materials kind of provided in accordance with the mayor's proposal. It could be an additional supplementary material for you to review and consider for amendments. Eric, go ahead.
So in my opinion, it complicates the matter. It's going to be complicated enough. And there's going to be enough tensions, possibly. I would prefer that we vote on the mayor's proposed amendment. If it fails, then Councilor Mockler and another council member, perhaps Councilmember Revlowski, could propose bringing up the ordinance as written and then changing the voluntary. We can have a robust discussion because I think there's going to be costs, and we need to have the police and our city attorney involved in what does that mean if you have a professional, what are the perhaps unintended consequences? So I respectfully ask that we take care of this ordinance as presented first. If it passes, then your point is moot. If it fails, then we address that in another study session and move it forward.
That feels cleaner to me.
Second.
Okay. Let's move forward with that. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Attorney Fennel, who I've been calling Kylie all night. Wait, do you want to use your?
Is that something that we would want to maybe take up in committee?
In a public safety committee? Now that I excused the chief from your meeting.
I just either this the August meeting or the September meeting. I didn't know if that would. I'm gonna need to look at that one pretty carefully with Gary as well, because
Can we-
ultimately these. Yeah.
Can we just defer this, VP, can we just defer it to public safety for now? Is that okay? Okay, we'll just do that. So y'all have it on your agenda for either August or September. We'll know at the August 7th meeting, honestly, so maybe September would be more appropriate. We'll know August 7th. But I understand the urgency because inclement weather season is coming. So I think for some of us, that's on our mind too. All right, so we have a path forward, August 7th. We'll have the other one on general business. We'll have, Anna's, in committee. And other than that, please feel free to review your September 20th packet of over 1,000 pages, the packet that broke the internet. So it's still on there. It's still out there. Okay. Public Works Committee Chair Jane Robolowski, can you please?
Sorry, I'm so sorry, Council President.
Yes.
On the same item, I just want to say it out there. I just want to put it out there. And I think it's the same remedy, the same treatment.
Okay.
If there's potentially other amendments, like let's say right now the ordinance is written is in the city or county, if there's transportation, a possibility would be anywhere in the state with or without transportation, right? That's something that could be done. I think the same remedy is we vote on the proposal, and if that doesn't pass, then, we discuss those options, but I just wanted to.
So the friendly, right. So you're
think
saying
ahead that
if we
there
have,
could be other amendments. to
if
the
we have a
committee.
friendly amendment, that happens in the course of, because we have to have a first and a second. So I'm assuming we might have a first and a second for the mayor's proposal. So we begin discussion. If there's another amendment, we have a first and a second for that. We talk about that. And then we vote on it.
I mean, I think that that's allowed and that's possible to keep it clean. I think, I'm with Eric on the proposal of vote it, straight up and down, or maybe there'll be a motion to table. But as far as amendments goes in general, although I think anyone's within their right to make
Right,
an amendment on the
exactly. That's what I'm
fly,
saying.
it
We're
probably is
both in
cleaner,
one-
just talking this out ahead of time, probably is cleaner to just take the proposal as is. And if it gets passed, okay. And if it doesn't get passed, then we continue discussion of amending it.
I understand
Yeah.
cleaner, but we're also allowed to be a little messy here.
Oh, yeah.
We
Right.
can be
But-
messy.
And
So
the thing I would ask though is that if we're amending an ordinances on the floor as a discussion and then you're voting on it, my office has no ability to review them at that point.
Right.
And so I can't be prepared for anything that might come up during the meeting. And so normally we would have time to vet that ahead of
Perhaps.
time and make a review. And so
perhaps another amendment might be, I mean, if we choose to table it or push it off. Right? So let's process that. If we
Yeah.
do choose after public comment to pause and take more time, how would we address that together?
right. And there would also be the issue of like whether a person might not have an issue with what's in the agenda and think that that's what's being voted on up or down, and maybe they don't care, but then they might have an issue with something else. But I'll stop talking. I'm just saying, I would like the time, if we're going to start drafting code, I need a little bit more time than it being done on the
Could be a
fly.
motion somebody could say, I'm going to move to table this with the expressed reason of I want to work on an amendment that, modifying this in a different way.
Okay. What we don't want to do is table it into eternity. What is that? What is the tabling into eternity move?
Right.
We don't want to
To
do
be
that.
clear, I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm just talking through scenarios. I have no personal
No, I appreciate
thing
it.
here. I'm just wanting to, talk through scenarios while we're on the subject.
You guys, you'll need to have your mics on if you're
Small
Yes.
point of order.
okay.
Jeff, can you give Jane your power cord?
You need to have your microphone on. But I would really love to move forward to your report. So are we okay to move forward to that? Okay, thank you. Thank you for the foresight, for the additional support in planning and processing, how this meeting's gonna go next. I appreciate both of the former council presidents. Thank you.
Ready?
Jane, yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, we met on Tuesday, July 16th. A kind of short agenda, but we still took.
Come
up our-
closer to the mic. Yep, there we go.
It is short agenda, but it still took us 2 hours. We talked about the well 7 bid opening on the 24th. Our new operations manager presented the first take on the road preservation 5-year plan. It still needs to be vetted as far as costs, and that should be done within, let's see, July. No later than October. We should have a 5-year plan for which roads are going to be repaved, repaired, whatever. They also have their first take on sidewalk work by our crews. That also needs to be modified to make sure, because it was still Ron's first take. And he's got a lot of stuff going on. It's, he's new to the city and a big work plan. Then we got a brief presentation from Sean Walsh, our utility and forest land management plan update, the council engagement process. They're going to come talk to us about it in a month or so.
Mike's?
It's called the Utility and Forest Land Management Plan Update and the council engagement process of such plan.
Thank you.
September. Then we had a very long discussion on the Puget Sound Navy Museum, and we brought up that the lease was up in September. Mike Riley did get some information after that meeting telling us that the Navy asked for a 1-year extension of the current $1 a year lease. And so hopefully we get something that's a little more favorable to the city. And that the new contract should be ready to sign or to accept September of 25. Contract amendment number 6 with SCJ Alliance for the Warren Avenue Bridge project design services. So we're submitting a grant application for approximately $2 million, I believe it is. 500,000 goes, or up to 800,000 goes to SCJ for additional work that they need to do because the project was delayed so long. And then we were shown several proposals for connectors to the bridge, and we kind of voted on those. So we felt that the most important one was the connection from the northeast corner. Is that the northeast? Northeast corner, down Juniper. We wanted them to work on that one first. They had some other ones for sidewalk extensions, but they're existing sidewalks and they were just going to make them bigger. So we really wanted them to work on that. So this contract amendment is for the design and the permits and the environmental. We promised at least 2 public meetings for this before we get to the final stage. And then preparing the RFP for the U-bit that we get to buy. So that's really important. Okay. So they have to submit this grant by the 2nd week in August. I hope so.
Just for public Knowledge, Anna asked, can we use it for a Christmas tree?
Not everybody celebrates the Christmas holiday, so probably.
I
not.
mean, Anna,
Perhaps the U-bit does.
Well,
please continue. I thought you said it was a short agenda, Jane.
What short agenda?
Come on, come on now. Okay, final.
Yeah,
final
not
report.
one mention of this Krampus character or whatever that is.
Krampus. Oh, don't get that lady all upset.
Krampus.
We talked
Krampus.
about the Francis Street stormwater, which Dave Kuhn did a great job talking about tonight. We talked about Snyder Avenue. So they went out to look at how much sidewalk they could install and realized that there was a lot of stormwater issues that needed to be resolved first. But they know the speeds are high there, so they are going to put traffic calming in at the intersection of 15th and Snyder to be like a curb bulb and a shortened path across the road. And they're gonna put sidewalk on both sides of the street for, I think it was 130 feet on both sides. And then they're gonna be looking at the stormwater to come up with a little plan for that so that then they can each year add on to the sidewalk. Probably just one side of the road, but it's a start.
Okay, you're still going. Sorry.
Oh, and then
Fine.
we had, and Gunnar is working on a traffic calming project notebook with all different kinds of traffic calming solutions. And then we had a long discussion on the cost of contracted engineering services. And Ned and Tom didn't see any way of not having so much contracted out. So that might be a further discussion on that. And that was the committee meeting. The end. That wasn't too long. I've gone on much longer.
Okay. So just for clarification, I mean, I guess just email me, but I think you're kind of proposing some future items or, okay. So let's just email me or and we'll talk about that for the future. All right. Next up is Audit Committee Chair Anna Mockler to provide a brief summary of the last meeting held on July 22nd. I should have yelled brief with.
We met, we talked about things, we adjourned.
No, there's
Less
got to be
brief?
more than
All
that.
right.
Okay.
It was the first, it was the first meeting with Rosalind Medina, the CPA, and I brought flowers and we all thanked Christine for the language she had used and the postcards she had sent out, which got us 4 flippin' candidates. Hallelujah. So Christine, yes. The procurement approval compliance review was trembling on the edge of completion last time I spoke to you, but there were various emergencies in the auditor's family and it's practically done. And the audit committee has asked her to then move on to the parking that has been on the work plan since, I don't know, since before Eric got on council, a long time. We reviewed the auditor department budget, which we do every year. And it has changed in a normal incremental fashion. The state auditor's office exit conference, I attended it. Obviously Auditor Sims got a whole lot more out of it than I, but there is a 46-page report and a 3-page summary. The 3-pager is, the people's choice. The takeaway from this is that there were a couple of places where I's were not dotted and T's were not crossed in the exact way. And that it was minor stuff, not, oh my gosh. And the indicator for that this is minor is the fact that the state auditor's office does not find the same errors every year, which would indicate that it was a pattern. It's like, hey, you've got to beef up your training over here. Or, okay. Then we adjourned.
Okay. There we go. Then you adjourned. Finance, investment and parking chair. Good now is gone today. Anybody else want to report out on that?
That'd be me.
Hey.
Second in command.
There we go.
All right, so real brief meeting. Chris Dimmitt gave us information. Council doesn't have to approve this, but just an FYI. Looks like they're gonna put in for a TIB application for a short section of sidewalk, 4th Street and Warren. So just a small section of, oh, okay, we can go for that nominal amount, but let's get it. Good. Talked about the Navy Museum. It was discussed already tonight. Well, it doesn't go before the council, can get renewed for 1 year. So it's out. And then they're gonna start doing a deep dive in negotiations on a longer term contract. And then we had a brief discussion on the public outreach budget for, I guess, basically next year on how we explain to our public the budget process and how they can be involved in it. And that was it.
Okay, thank
Anything
you.
else, Jane? All right, that was it.
Just on that, so there's that, I don't know, it's silly. There's an actual clause in there that says either party can renew that lease for up to just 1 year.
Don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Didn't look at the lease.
I'll go back and look at it, just check. Okay.
Okay.
I think the answer might be the lease is due, and so you can go ahead and do a 1 year. Basically, it's like if you're a landlord and wanted to have a tenant stay until you get a new contract, you just extend them. So something
Okay.
like that.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if there was an existing clause, so it doesn't need to come back to us, or if it was a proposed 1 year extension that we would approve.
Yeah, it was not something that the council needed to approve.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any regional boards or committees to report on since last study session? Anna.
So Kitsap Transit's going to be on vacation all August, so you're relieved from this in August. But one thing that came up, I mean, apart from new parts are being gotten for stuff, and they're going to cost like $670K here, 1.4 mil there. The thing that I thought that this council might be interested in is they're authorizing a new hire incentive extension. In other words, like Kitsap Transit's giving $7,000 to new hires, and then they were also balancing that with giving bonuses to first responders who worked through the pandemic. So they want to do that for another 6 months with the option to renew for another 6 months. And I brought up that, and I have to thank Jane for this, like something I knew long ago and had totally forgotten, which is when you're doing union negotiations, you can get a lot done with money. Specifically, the thing that really deters people from signing up to drive for Kitsap Transit is that your first 2 years, it's like you don't know what base you're going to go out of. You don't know what hours you're going to work. You're working a lot of split shifts. And that's not typically a job for like a steady, responsible person with a family, right? They need a regular employment. And that this problem could be solved by throwing money at it. So I made this proposal and people were, I don't know, but if it's something that the council would like to support me doing in September, like let's bring it up at some future good of the order. Otherwise, I'll just keep plugging along with it myself. And yes, always a thrill to look at the sums of money at Kitsap Transit.
Thank you. Okay. So just a reminder that we do have a tour of Gold Mountain Golf Course on Tuesday, August 6th. I have one thing to add before we close for our exempt session. We have we're gonna have a walk-on appointment for the CDBG board. One of our members was not able to be on the CDBG review board because she's traveling. because they do all of their work in August, it's been asked that we tackle it during our agenda briefing at our next meeting on the 7th. And so I'll be bringing it up, but in the meantime, we're going to forward you the application for review so that you can see it and you can process it, and then we can have a discussion at that briefing, provided that time allowing. So hopefully we don't have any other complications that occurred during that agenda briefing, but we can process the application at that point in time to decide if we want to put it onto the agenda. Hopefully consent, it could be general. Director Spencer, come on up.
Thank you for this chance to be here. I just want to sum up. This is one of the candidates of the 12 that we interviewed. It was one of the candidates who checked the box, were interested in serving on the project review committee. So her name is Grace Crowley. I don't know if you know who she is, but I was quite impressed with her qualifications. She was one of the top contenders to be placed on the planning commission. And I was pleased as all get when we found out that Melissa couldn't serve this year. We reached out to her and said, would you be interested? And she said, absolutely. So she agreed to put her name forward. So today I sent you all an email, and so you have her application in your box. So I'm hoping that you can take a look at that. We can get her, because it's mission critical for the CDBG process, that all the work that that committee does is in the month of August into the first week of September, and then they're done. So having to wait for another couple of weeks would be detrimental to the program. Thank you.
Anna.
Well, this is kind of segueing into good of the order, but
Well, this is good of the order, actually.
Tomboy Grace Crowley is one of my constituents, and I have been impressed by her intelligence and acumen. She is the contact person for the proposal I brought up 2 weeks ago about the people the TANF recipients who could earn $20, who could work for 20 hours a week for any government or nonprofit, and the Works Project or whatever it's called. I sent an email to council, so I've downloaded it. Will pay their wages for 20 hours. So I just can't recommend Grace Crowley too highly.
Okay. Jeff.
Can I propose, since I'm reading through the application now and hearing that, I mean, I'm seeing a complete application, well qualified. She previously served in, was a college senate. Anyway, I'm seeing a really good application. I would just propose we put it on consent now. And if anyone has.
Yeah, let me just
concerns
double
with the
check
briefing-
with our lawyer, because I did ask ahead of
Mhm.
time, can we do that?
Yeah.
Do you see any issues? Okay. We'll just handle it at the briefing. Okay.
Cure it.
All right. Yeah. So we'll go ahead. Does anybody have any issues with putting it on consent, and you can review okay, great. All right. So next, after tonight's meeting is adjourned, the council will meet in an exempt closed session to discuss or review labor negotiations pursuant to RCW 42.30.1404B, and no action is anticipated. There is no council meeting next week since it is a 5th Wednesday. So the next council meeting will be Wednesday, August 7th, starting at 5:30 p.m. in the first floor meeting chambers of the Norm Dix Government Center. The public is invited to attend in person or remotely, but anybody wishing to speak during public recognition via Zoom must submit their request through the city clerk by calling 360-473-5323 at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. This meeting is adjourned.